to see you.
Thank you.
And how wonderful to be here doing a promotional interview for new music, which we cannot take for granted anymore in your life or my life. So
Yep.
this must feel pretty good.
Oh, it feels great to have music that is one of the things that people can feel connected and can reach them. You press a button and it's magically in your front room or in your car or in your ears. So that is seems magical to have that. It's been a kind of strange. Promotions felt difficult. The music feels the same, but promotion is like we're practically yelling to each other across this very vast coffee table. But yeah, to be able to release music is just it's an absolute joy and a privilege.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. We seem to be listening to more music than ever before. We kind of need our music now. And I'm really struck by the fact that you've made a disco record. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Magic is fantastic. I love
Thank
that.
you.
And I don't know whether you knew before you started recording your album, but there is this nostalgic vibe going on with people,
Yeah.
and they're listening to songs from the 70s and the 80s, and there's been a huge surge in people doing that on streaming services. So you've kind of hit onto something.
Yeah. Was I don't know if I was aware of that. I mean, I always feel, well, maybe not in my early 20s when I was like, had to be modern, I was clubbing and doing all of that. But, I just feel like you've reached a certain age and there's just more nostalgia. There's more behind you. So I'm a sucker for that anyway. So, yeah, it could have been in the zeitgeist. It could have been around, but it wasn't something that I had in writing or had in my mind going, this is what's happening, let's do that. For me, it was more a reaction to the previous year. Well, actually, so 2019 doing Greatest Hits tour, all of that reminiscing, looking back, which is great. It's celebratory, it's emotional. You don't have many opportunities to do that. But it did make me want to make new music. There's all those songs that I do love, but yeah, that little kind of fire lights up and it just made me more inspired to do new music.
But there's something particular about disco, isn't there? When we
Yeah.
think about joyful, uplifting genres of music,
Yeah.
people will generally say, well, we're talking disco, we're talking
Yeah.
that 70s vibe. So,
I think there must be the younger generation who are like, disco? What? I mean, like, it makes me think of when I was a teenager and my parents might say, oh, that's groovy. And you're like, oh, don't say groovy or whatever it is at whatever decade. But yeah, disco for me as a kind of teenager, that was where you wanted to go. My first disco would have been the blue light disco, which the police operated for all the kind of hormonal 14 and 15-year-old kids to go to. But I was born in 68, so as a kind of 9-10-year-old, 77, 78 was my eardrums were kind of peaking with Donna Summer and Chic and Saturday Night Fever, ABBA, like just all of that. So it's just always been in my system. And doing the Golden album in 2018, which had a kind of country influence, which was just so enjoyable and so important for me. It was obvious we were heading back to the dance floor, and decided to even narrow that further and call it disco at the start of the year.
So the irony is, of course, it's a vibe of heading back to a dance floor, and that's exactly what we're not doing.
Yeah.
So that makes you feel quite sad about that, really.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a real state of affairs, but I do believe enough that disco or dance or that kind of that feeling is somewhere within us. Please stay there. Don't make it solely dependent on physically going to a nightclub. And as you say, it's really popular now. People are bringing into it's a kitchen disco. We can't go to the disco, but it still felt right. I did question that. I didn't go blindly into that. I I questioned, does this still work? Should we still release it? And yeah, it felt like, well, we're not saving the world by not releasing it. And we asked around, kind of a general, kind of get the lay of the land, and it seemed like people were ready. So that's it. I did it.
Releasing an album, it's coming out in November.
Yeah.
You're not going to be going on a world tour.
No.
There's so many things are different, aren't they, Kylie?
Yeah. I love touring. I mean, it's strenuous and it's difficult, and sure, I kind of destroy myself a little bit more with every tour, but it's the one place where it's you have to be there to feel it. So I really am missing being able to announce a tour or even think when I might tour. Especially having had Glastonbury last year, which was it just couldn't have been bigger. So that's a bit of a pipe dream at the moment. Watch this space. As soon as I could do so, I would love to tour. Yeah.
You're hopeful though that part of the normal routine will return? I'm
trying to stay hopeful. It doesn't seem like it's going to be anytime soon. Certainly not the way we have all known it. And why would we not have taken that for granted? Yeah, let's see.
The manner in which you recorded the album is quite interesting as well, because I think all of us have had to learn new skills, haven't we, in our lockdown lives, operating microphones or something. But you had to go out and buy your recording gear, didn't you?
Well, I didn't go out and buy it. I stayed home and bought it, like most people. I had just at the start of March, my last big show was in Sao Paulo on 6th of March. And even leading up to that, I think I called my manager's office every day. I was like, are we still going? Is it still happening? It did happen, and thankfully everyone was fine. So I came back, and then I was in the studio more or less every day. Like, I was really kind of getting on that roll, kind of knew what we were doing, stick to the disco theme. If anyone veered off, it would kind of reel them back in. And then we knew that lockdown was approaching. And my last day in the studio, I was in a studio in Brighton. A friend of mine, his house, the basement, has a studio. And the three of us that day, as the clock was ticking to kind of knock off time around 6, I remember saying, I don't know, this weird feeling came over me, and it felt like it was a bit like the elephant in the room. It was around, and then I just said, well, it feels like the last day of school holidays. Like, I don't know when we'll see each other again. So then there was just a few weeks of nothing, just mild panic. And eventually, I did get the equipment to record from home. Part of me was thinking, well, it's about time you learned this stuff. But I did it. I was, nursing this expensive microphone. Don't drop that microphone down the stairs. And trying to figure out, it's simple stuff if you know it and you've done it before, but really having to use a different part of my brain to, how does this connect? And the cables. And once all that was done, so we would do songwriting sessions, recording sessions, and now I'm at the stage where I can record the vocals and send them, which is pretty cool, I reckon. Like, you'll have them by later. And I've seen quite a few artists talk about that. I remember, so early in lockdown, my boyfriend said to me he'd seen a little interview with Mark Ronson, and how he was saying there was all this stuff he didn't know and he had to learn it, which totally surprised me. I thought, Mark Ronson is just amazing at everything. Surely he knows all that stuff. Everyone's had to learn a little bit and discovered new things or new skills. I wish it was other, but under the circumstances, it was, we made it happen. And it was a great distraction for me, actually.
Having something to occupy your mind and think about and work out?
So I more or less was working a full week, working remotely with everyone, and they've got kids, so it was just so different. Of course we would prefer to be in the room, but one of them would say, I can do 1:30 to 3:30, then I've got to put baby down, but I'll come back. So it was a lot of juggling. I did feel kind of overwhelmed, maybe like 5 weeks into it. I was like, I really need some help. But yeah, interesting times, very interesting times. Anyway, I've got something to show for that time, which is awesome.
Do you think you've learned things that will always be the way you operate from now on? Because that's what some other artists have said, that, you know, I've learnt these skills and maybe that will take away the need to travel so much. And...
Yeah, travel and it's just quite liberating. I mean, I'm a people person. I love being in the studio, and especially if you're writing and creating, you know, some parts of it just become one, and you're not sure who had that. Where did that idea come from? Did we just manifest it? Like there's a total beauty, and you know, it's quite addictive to have that synergy. But yeah, if I had to just deliver some vocals, would I do them from home now, or would I go to a studio? It would depend. Actually, I had quite a few people I worked with were just saying they were busier than ever because they would get into sessions in Los Angeles, in anywhere in the world, that previously they just would not have been in. So I think it has changed how we'll record from now on.
What about
I might become one of those like mic collectors. And the guys that I work with who have not known, they've known the previous me that doesn't talk techniques. And now I'm like, yeah, did you use the SM8 or the SM? What? Like, who have you become? So yeah, I'm not a fully fledged, geek with all of that, but baby steps.
And what about touring? Because the travelling, getting on a plane, even that's become a very difficult thing to do, and almost unthinkable that people would make journeys that they don't have to do. But touring is kind of about getting on a plane and going to Asia and to America.
Do you know what? It seems insane now. I just think about, especially 2018, 2019, I toured a lot. And just to think about that now, I mean, it's kind of hard to put my head in that space. I was like, you know, it's Wednesday. What day is it? Where are we? We're in Norway. It seems so extravagant. It seems quite wild. Like if this was the world we'd known and someone said, like there was a film about that world, we'd be going, no way, that's amazing. You're in a different country nearly every day. So as much as I've done it nearly my entire life, I'm kind of just looking at it completely differently. I long for it, but at the same time, it does seem pretty wild.
I mean, would you do it again if things change in the coming months or whatever to allow more air travel? I mean, would you?
I would not feel confident to do that. No. My crew are like my family on the road, and no, I worry enough about them anyway, and people are worried about me. So I just know it's just not on the cards for now. But as and when, touch wood, we can, I'll be the first to put my hand up. Can we please, can we go on tour? Absolutely.
You touched on it earlier. You know, just over a year ago, we were watching you at Glastonbury, the most watched clip in Glastonbury history. And it was very emotional. Tens of thousands of people there. And it's like a historical artifact almost when we look at it now, isn't it?
Oh my God, yeah. It was hard for me to grasp that moment, or that 75 minutes. Let's just call it that moment anyway, So now seems even more ridiculous to me that there we were with, I don't know how many thousands there were. I mean, close to 200,000 people. Yeah, so it took me, I mean, I didn't get there the first time I was supposed to, so I was very glad to get there the second time. And now I'm thinking, wow, you know, if it was this year, none of us would have been there.
It must make you even more emotional, though, knowing not only was it incredibly emotional, but we haven't had a Glastonbury this year. We still don't know for sure whether we've got one next year, which is almost unthinkable even saying these things.
I know. And I've yet to experience Glastonbury on the ground, in the mud, in a tent or glamping or whatever it might be. And I was ready to go see Diana Ross perform the legend slot, and to have my first I'm doing it backwards. I've performed on the main stage, and now I want to see it with everyone. So yeah, another thing on the list of things we hope to do.
There are so many people, not least the fans, but the promoters, the bands, the technicians, who are just waiting, aren't they, for this thing that they love. And festivals in Britain bring millions of people in, and it's massive for the economy. They're just waiting to see whether they can get back to work. I know you work with people, technicians, sound engineers.
I've worked with some of my crew for 20 years. Like, we've all been through some stuff during the time we've known each other. And of course, my heart, I've been able to keep working, but I think about all those people. You know, Nicky Sizer, my drum tech. I mean, he's probably the oldest member of our crew, and I think about Nicky Sizer. When's he going to get out on the road? When's he going to be able to gear up someone's drums for anything? And not only their livelihood, but it's their way of life. That's what they do. So not only to have your livelihood and you know, your means of earning just kind of vanish, but for so many people, losing what defines you. I mean, I've had a little bit of something like that, just talking about touring and connecting, having that fairly consistent adrenaline through my life and through what I do, and that not having that through lockdown, it manifests as a little bit of, you know, the blues, basically. So yes, the fact that I was able to get an album done and be with people and be creative and stimulated definitely helped pick me up.
It's interesting you talk about that, because that's what everyone's talking about at the moment. I've got a teenage daughter who's back at school, but it's terribly stressful, and it's terribly stressful for all of us in the workplace, whatever that workplace can be. And people are talking very openly about, you know, mental health and the pressures on their mental health. Yeah. So that applies to my teenage daughter. It applies to Kylie too. Yeah,
it's just, I mean, everyone's having to deal with whatever they're having to deal with. I've never felt further from home, further from Australia. I already felt very fortunate that, 8 months ago, I was able to, you know, Australia's far and it's a schlep to get there, but to have the means to be able to, you know, I don't have to give notice at work for too long or have to sort the kids' schooling or anything. I had that luxury to say, I really need to go home. I can buy a ticket. Now I don't have that. And that was the first thing that really got me.
So you struggled like many other people?
Yeah. I mean, and now we're kind of finding a new normal, trying to traverse these new waters. I'm always, of course, I was able to work. I have got a roof. I feel, you know, I'm so thankful for so many things. But in my own way, we've all had to deal with this. But obviously I feel more for everyone else, but I think you have to acknowledge some of the changes and some of the things you're going through.
Any prospects of getting back home?
I had thought earlier in the year, Australia was doing so well. I thought, I'll get my album released and I'll just go back to Australia and everything's going to be great. And of course, Melbourne and Victoria have just gone through it. My family, I mean, I feel so helpless. They have really been through it, and are not through it yet. So they're looking at maybe another week, and then some easing of the restrictions. So yeah, I mean, again, something that I thought was, we just cannot take anything for granted or presume anything. That's my getaway and where I thought I'd be fine. And who knows?
You're set to break a record.
Oh my God. I'm so nervous about that.
But it's quite an astonishing record. You'll be joining the likes of David Bowie.
I might be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always a excitement and nerves with any album release, and the fact that there is this statistic, I can't even tell you what it is. I kind of like I half hear it, and I know it's there, but I don't want to.
You'd be the first
female
solo artist to have a #1 album across 5 consecutive decades. I believe that's the record in the UK.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
Oh God. Just you can hear. I'm very excited, nervous, astonished for sure. How did that happen? And actually, as I'm asking myself, how did that happen? I have like little snapshots of just bits and pieces through all the years, through 30-something years now, and I'm just seeing myself, my first video, my first song, just being so kind of excited to make a record. So yeah, it would be amazing. It's still amazing. It is amazing. I'm here. We're talking about a new album, and yes, it's a strange and trying world right now. So I feel so grateful and such a privilege to be able to find that way into people's homes or into their lives or their stories. That's the ultimate. That is, I mean, it may sound corny, but it is the ultimate moment of what I do anyway.
And it's extraordinary longevity, which is still a rare thing in the music industry, and all that love that came back at you at Glastonbury last year. You must really feel it, and here you are making another album and set to break a record. And this is still a pretty rare thing, isn't it, in music in the UK?
A unicorn. Yeah, look, I was probably meant to be a one-hit wonder. I must have been written off so many times. I know I have been. But I like what I do. I'm always learning. There's always something new to learn. There's new people to meet, it's the same notes. And people write new songs all the time, and even with a song, like the second it goes to radio, it's different for me. It sounds completely different. It's the same record, but it sounds completely different. So yeah, to be on the kind of verge of releasing more music, yes, it's I get nervous, but it's very exciting.
You'll have seen so many extraordinary changes within the music industry. You've been privileged to see it, in each of the decades and how things have radically changed. Have they got better for female artists? Because I've spoken to some in the past, Dua Lipa, who say, well, I still don't get as much respect as a male artist. Have you noticed it get better, or are you still fighting for parity?
I think in general it's better because people are talking about it. And it definitely has made me look back at my history with a slightly different lens and try to kind of investigate. Like, I've just been going through it, but it really asked myself, what when and where have I been subject to sexism? And you know, I got through, made it through the lads mags. I made it through you know, the pin-up era, through going back to the beginning, being someone who had really nothing to show that they were worth their place in the music industry. So I've had to fight my own fight. And it, you know, the highs are great and we can celebrate them, but they just don't exist without riding the lows. What I've had to, how it's been different being a woman in the industry, I don't think it's been too bad for me. I would say it was just more general. But I hope that I inspire other women to do this. I had my heroes as a young girl. I mean, I was dancing around my room to Madonna, Whitney Houston, Cyndi Lauper. I mean, there were females in the industry to look up to. Granted, there were more men, but I guess I looked mostly at the women, and Prince and Adamant. Okay, a few of the guys as well, but I mean, I would have to go back to the way that I was raised, and my mum will, because it's a topic of discussion now, my mum will remind us. I kind of forgot that she always said to us, you do whatever you do what you want, because you're a woman, you're a girl at that time. So I never felt that there were issues in at least my kind of personal realm that I had to, hurdles I had to get over.
As a woman in your 50s, like me, do you feel that the world is a better place for women who are older? I mean, you've just done a photo shoot with Vogue, and that is one industry that is addressing the problem, certainly British Vogue, and they are going for gender, age, race diversity like never before. It's
so beautiful to see, and you can see the change on morning TV, in the papers, in the magazines, in the billboards. You see it, and it's a beautiful thing. Diversity and inclusion and less judgment. And I have definitely been on the receiving end of that, and that's no fun, having to justify who you are and why you should be there. I feel like maybe 6 years ago or so, I just was being asked the question all the time. So I was, what was I then, 44, 45? You know, how do you feel being a woman? When should you stop being sexy? When should you not wear this? I just was like, I don't know. I just stop asking me the question. And then I guess I addressed that on Golden and in the song Golden. I said, well, we can't make ourselves older and we can't make ourselves younger. We are who we are at any given point in time. And it's great not to have to explain the bleeding obvious anymore. So yeah, it's refreshing.
You're in a good place now, though. You're obviously having a whale of a time and making music, and you look great, and you know, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, the looks might be one thing. I am 52. Things do get more difficult. It's like I finished shooting the video or a photo shoot, and I'm like, I got through the day okay. The next day, no. I kind of like going one step at a time up the stairs at home. I was like, is that my age, or is that just because it's been locked down and I haven't actually done anything, and suddenly it's like 0 to hero. So yeah, things change, but you have to accept that and just accept and adapt.
It catches up with us all, even Kylie Minogue.
Even when you have to do your roots at home on your own. Yeah, okay. That's a good life skill to have.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.